Some mornings the alarm goes off and you don't even remember falling asleep. Your hand reaches out before your eyes open. You hit snooze. Again. And somewhere between the third buzz and the dull ceiling above you, a quiet thought slips in. How long do I have to keep doing this? Not dramatically. Not angrily. Just honestly. Most people don't stay with that question. They push it away, get dressed, pour coffee, and tell themselves retirement is something far off, a future version of life that doesn't really exist yet, 65, 70, maybe never. So the days blur together. Paychecks come in, bills go out. Years pass without much change. But every now and then, someone pauses long enough to wonder if there's another way to live, not a flashy way, not a lottery ticket way, just a calmer way. A way where work becomes optional instead of mandatory, where money stops being the thing that quietly controls every decision. That's what this conversation is about. Not getting rich, not quitting life, not escaping responsibility, just building enough momentum that your time belongs to you again. The strange lie we're all told about compounding. There's a popular belief that compounding is slow, that it takes decades before anything meaningful happens. That belief isn't entirely wrong, but it's incomplete. Compounding feels slow at first because almost all of its power is hidden. Like roots underground. Like gravity before liftoff. The real problem is that compounding doesn't work quickly enough. The problem is that most people never stay long enough to see the part where it finally works. They invest for a few months. They stop when life gets messy. They pull money out when the news gets loud. They restart later and repeat the cycle. So they experience compounding forever stuck in first gear. What if instead you treated the next 5 years as a single, intentional chapter? Not 5 separate years to judge individually. One uninterrupted arc. That's the heart of the 2-3-5 idea. Not a promise, not a shortcut, a structure. Year 1 and 2, the years nobody claps for. The first 2 years are the most misunderstood part of building wealth. They're quiet, they're boring, and emotionally they can feel thankless. You're putting money away, maybe $100, maybe $200, maybe more, and nothing dramatic happens. Your account grows, sure, but not in a way that changes your life, not in a way that impresses anyone. Sometimes it barely feels like progress at all. This is where doubt shows up. You start asking questions that sound reasonable but carry emotional weight. Is this even worth it? Shouldn't I be seeing more by now? What if I'm wasting time? Those questions aren't signs of failure. They're the test. Compounding doesn't reward enthusiasm at the beginning. It rewards patience. In these early years, your contributions do almost all the work. The growth exists, but it's small, like sparks before a fire catches. You're learning to delay gratification in a world that constantly invites you to spend. You're saying no to things that feel harmless but add up quietly. From the outside, nothing about you looks special. Inside, something important is forming. Identity. At some point during these 2 years, you stop feeling like someone trying to invest and start seeing yourself as someone who simply does. Missing a contribution feels wrong. Spending money mindlessly feels uncomfortable. Not because you're depriving yourself, but because you're protecting something that matters. This shift doesn't show up on a spreadsheet, but it's the most valuable asset you build in the entire process. Why 2 years matter more than people think. 2 years is long enough for the math to start whispering back to you. The small gains from the first year begin earning their own gains. Nothing explosive, just enough to be undeniable. You check your account one day and realize, this grew even though I didn't do anything this month. That moment changes how you understand time. Money stops feeling static. It starts feeling alive. And once you see that, really see it, you can't unsee it. You stop asking how fast this can work and start asking how long you can let it run. Years 3 to 5, when effort slowly stops being the hero. Somewhere in year 3, the relationship between you and your money changes. Your contributions still matter, but now they're not alone. Every dollar of past growth becomes a tiny worker, quietly compounding alongside your new deposits. The numbers begin to move in ways that surprise you. The annual increase in your portfolio starts to rival, and sometimes exceed, what you personally added that year. This is where many people panic. The balance finally feels meaningful. And because it feels meaningful, it suddenly feels fragile. They pull out to buy something temporary. They lock in gains. They convince themselves they'll get back in later. What they don't realize is that they've just interrupted the exact phase where compounding becomes powerful. Momentum is delicate early on, not because it's weak, but because it hasn't yet reached critical mass. Staying invested here isn't about bravery. It's about understanding the mechanics. This stage feels less like grinding and more like guiding. You're not pushing a boulder uphill anymore, you're steering something that already wants to move forward. Adjustments become calm, not desperate. Risk is managed, not chased. Money stops feeling like a scoreboard and starts feeling like infrastructure. The quiet meaning of explosion. The word explosion sounds dramatic, but the reality is subtler. There's no confetti moment. No sudden transformation overnight. What actually happens is this. The curve bends enough that you notice time doing more work than you are. Your portfolio's growth over a year begins to resemble chunks of your salary, then months of expenses, then, eventually, whole years of living costs. Not because you found a secret. Because you didn't interrupt the process. This is when work changes mining. You may still choose to work, but you're no longer trapped by it. Losing a job becomes inconvenient, not catastrophic. Bills feel manageable instead of threatening. Decisions are made from preference, not pressure. Freedom doesn't arrive loudly. It arrives quietly as relief. What freedom actually feels like. Freedom isn't buying everything you want. It's not checking your account obsessively. It's not winning. It's waking up without financial dread. It's knowing that a bad month won't undo your life. It's being able to walk away from situations that don't align with your values. It's time feeling like something you own again. And the strangest part. Once you reach that place, your desire for status fades. You stop needing external proof that you're doing well. Confidence comes from stability, not display. Money becomes boring, and that's a good thing. The real advantage no one talks about. Starting earlier beats starting bigger. Time does more heavy lifting than intensity ever could. Someone who begins a year later often has to work exponentially harder just to catch up, and sometimes never does. Consistency compounds identity. Identity compounds behavior. Behavior compounds results. That's the loop. And once it's running, it becomes surprisingly resilient. The only thing that truly breaks the plan. Markets move. Returns vary. Life interrupts. None of that ruins the plan. What ruins it is restarting. Selling in fear. Pausing contributions indefinitely. Constantly changing strategies out of boredom. The math can't help someone who never lets it finish its sentence. A calmer way to begin. You don't need to overhaul your life. You need a number you can commit to, not impressively, but honestly. You need a simple, diversified approach that matches your tolerance for risk. You need automation so your future isn't held hostage by your moods. And you need a date far enough away that you promise not to judge the journey prematurely. Every contribution is a quiet agreement with your future self. No drama, no pressure, just follow through. If there's one thing worth holding on to after all of this, it's this. Building financial freedom is less about force and more about patience. The most important moments aren't the big market swings or the months where numbers jump. They're the ordinary days where nothing exciting happens and you keep going anyway. That's where the real work lives. That's where identity forms. That's where the future quietly takes shape. It's easy to underestimate what 5 focused years can do because we live in a world obsessed with immediate results. We're taught to judge progress quickly, abandon plans early, and chase whatever looks exciting next. But money doesn't work that way. Neither does peace of mind. Freedom isn't a finish line you sprint toward. It's something you grow into. And once you do, it doesn't demand constant attention. It settles into your life like background stability, giving you room to breathe, to choose, to respond instead of react. If you're early in the journey, it's okay if things feel slow. That doesn't mean you're behind. It means you're laying foundations most people never bother to build. If you're somewhere in the middle, it's normal to feel cautious or restless. That's often a sign that momentum is forming, even if it doesn't feel dramatic yet. And if you're already seeing the results, the calm, the flexibility, the reduced fear, remember that this didn't come from brilliance. It came from staying when it would have been easier to quit. Wherever you are, the goal isn't perfection. It's continuity. 5 years from now, the details may surprise you. Life always does. But the version of you who stayed consistent, who trusted time, who made thoughtful decisions instead of impulsive ones, that version why? Be grateful. Not because everything turned out perfectly, but because you gave yourself options. And in the end, that's what financial freedom really is. Not a louder life, just a quieter, steadier one where your time finally feels like it belongs to you again. Thanks for watching.